all right. So, hey man, I got a question for you.
What's up?
So, for $1 billion, you had to take an anime protagonist's attack to the chest. You live, but you do feel all of the pain. Whose attack are you taking from these people? Goku's Ultra Instinct Kamehameha, Naruto's Bijou Bomb, Hollow Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho, Gear 4th Luki's Kong Gun, Deku's Delaware Detroit Smash, or Saitama's consecutive serious punches.
Oh my gosh. See, when you said Naruto, I was like, okay, maybe it's just the Rasengan. And then you said the Bijou Bomb. Oh boy. I'll take the Ichigo Getsuga Tensho. Yeah, hopefully I'll live. So
Yeah, see, for me, I'd say keep the money, but if I had no choice, I would probably take the Deku Smash because it feels like with each of the other ones, I feel like I might feel like I'm getting atomized. And I know I'm gonna live, but the pain of getting atomized is probably so much worse than getting a punch straight to the dome.
yeah. Is he at 100% though?
Yes.
Oh boy, that's tough either way. But yeah, so definitely we lose either way.
Yep.
But shout out to our 50 listeners, also our European listeners, which is wild. But I'm Demetrius.
And I'm Demetrius.
And Meech presents
the Blurred City Podcast.
So we're going to have a nice, fun episode today. This is our introductory to anime episode for just a lot of people that have asked questions, just trying to figure out where to get into it. So we're going to kind of explain some of the subgenres, also give you some recommendations based on those subgenres and see what catches with you. In the upcoming weeks, we also have a lot going on. Next week is our Thor mega episode. Ooh. So we're going to have a mailbag associated with that. And just, it's going to be a really fun time. After that, we're going to get into the Boys season finale review and then also just discuss our upcoming Comic-Con experience. Anything else?
Oh man, so really there's more other things as you mentioned with the Comic-Con. It's going to be a great time. But we also have our Nope movie review that's going to be coming whenever that movie drops.
Yeah, so towards the end of July. So we have a lot of fun planned. Before we get into what's hot, we always hit you with the legal spiegel.
All right, and if you guys know it by heart, please feel free to say it with me. The purpose of this podcast is to explore digital and print media. All respective sources we reference are owned by their respective companies, and our thoughts and opinions are strictly our own and do not reflect any biases or corporate agendas. Your discretion is advised.
All right, so other than the 120 heat index in Texas right now, we're going to get into what's hot, see what's going on in the world, just keeping our ears to the street. So what you got that's hot?
All right, so once again, the boys is just out here wilding as always.
My goodness.
And then also the last couple episodes, Volume 2 of Stranger Things is out. So if you haven't caught up yet, you best do it now.
I'm scared.
And those episodes are long, so make sure you free up your entire day for that. Also, the movie The Black Phone came out, and one of the hosts here has seen it, so I'm not gonna say anything else. But let's just say that it is good. I'll just say that.
I'll be seeing The Black Phone later today, so we'll both be caught up with that. Hopefully that might be on our Patreon actually later. Also coming out, season 2 of Classroom of the Elite. A lot of hype behind that. We enter our summer season of animes, so that's going to be very exciting. Also, Umbrella Academy is out at the same time, so Netflix is trying to keep its subscribers before we all leave. So after that, we're going to get into our Geek Out Freak Out segment. So this is just the segment where we take the time, hype up either anything that you've seen, watched, read, played. You can... Ideally, this becomes a listener segment, and we can just like play voice notes, read your emails, and just have that. So you can hit us at our Gmail account, blurredcity22@gmail.com, or our Instagram and Twitter, which is blurredcity22. Okay, so I mentioned it last week, but it's called RRR, Rise, Roar, and Revolt, and it's a Netflix movie. So it's a Tollywood movie, I believe, and kind of like it's a bit in Hindi and also Telugu. So it takes place in India and kind of just like when it was still like occupied by Britain at the time. It's a really good movie. It's an example of just kind of expanding your horizons. So when I initially saw it, I loaded it up. It was 8 at night, and then I saw it was 3 hours long, and I was like, "Oh, ain't no way I'm finishing this tonight." It got 20 minutes in, and just like as for somebody that's going to watch it, it's very over the top. So if you can make it past the second scene without rolling your eyes, then it's definitely a movie that you'll enjoy. You can break it down into either 2 hour-and-a-half parts or just like kind of 6 30-minute parts to kind of if the time is too much for you. But it is an S tier movie to me. Like the story is absolutely incredible. Like I told you, like in the first Geek Out Freak Out segment with just like Boji and Ranking of Kings and Kage, like I am a sucker for friend stories, and this is one of like the great friend stories. The action is so funny, but also just like the acting, the heart behind it, the music. Like if you want to have a good time, there's this song called Natu Natu. Just look it up on YouTube and just like try to dance along if you can. But it's absolutely incredible. I just don't want to really get into a lot of spoilers for it, but I mean it's just like really good. And even seeing just like kind of in the colonial times, it was a bit rough, kind of just relating it to kind of our own cultural history. But I think they interweaved it well. And then again, it's just like in terms of like when people really have something that they are passionate about and invested in, and you can put in a good just like product. And I really appreciated that as a movie. So
Nice.
Rise, Roar, Revolt, or just Triple R.
Okay, awesome. I was actually, when you said 3 hours, I was going like, And then I remembered, oh, wait, I watched the Endgame like multiple times, and I watched Snyder's Justice League even more. So yeah, time is not a factor for me anymore.
So getting going from there, we're just going to get into our main portion. So this is the general discussion about the intro to anime. Before we like really start to break it down, we're just going to get into different subcategories to talk about. So just even starting, we're going to go to watchability and themes of anime. So like what kind of got you into it?
Oh man. All right. So really, I guess I sort of got exposed to it the way like most people in America did, which was through Cartoon Network's Toonami segment. You know, this is where like they pretty much brought like many Japanese Japanese anime to the West, to here in America, dubbed over it to make sure it's understandable to people. And really like what makes it rewatchable is the fact that like the animation quality can be absolute god tier, and then also like the stories are what makes it great, or it's like what keeps you in there. It's like stuff that makes you want, oh man, when does the next episode come out? You know, like you can have character growth and development, many like adult themes in different anime, as well as just in general, just fun times that can be had in there to make you either laugh, cry, get angry, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so like definitely what you mentioned with Toonami, like those Saturday nights were fire. Just the different lineups they had, I think it'd be like 7 to midnight, and then past midnight they would have other episodes as well. But for me, the watchability, it's so, accessible, like if you can find it, but if you like you can finish a 12 episode season in 4 hours and still have like the rest of your day. Where it kind of differs with like binging on Netflix or just like other shows where it's like, okay, 45 minutes to an hour and it's 8+ episodes. So like you're not going to do anything that day if you plan on binging. So, but for an anime, you can easily go, okay, let me do 2 hours at this point. Let me do 2 hours later. I'm done with the entire season and it's good. And then if you want to watch a 24 episode anime, that's kind of just like the same general 8 hours, which is the same as watching like a 8 episode hour long binge of like normal stuff. So that was really cool for me.
Nice. And what did you think about like our first first episode when we talked about, the different levels of scorn or things that we had within there.
Yeah, I think it rose a level. I'm not sure where it is now, honestly. It probably might be above fantasy, or like at least in the same tier as fantasy. We had our Star Wars review last week, and there's like so many Star Wars products that's going to come out in the near future, and then just like other mediums like that. So it's kind of competing with, but I would say it's kind of risen up. Maybe cartoons have fallen a bit, but kind of in that same tier.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely agree with you there, especially with the cartoon sphere, because I'm gonna trigger a lot of people nowadays that the cartoons of nowadays is much more childish and more child friendly than the ones from back in our childhood, and like anime is kind of growing to be like less of a childish thing, is more accepted, and how like different celebrities and whatnot have like acknowledged like, hey, I love anime. I'm looking at you, Samuel Jackson. You acknowledged that, and I just lost it.
Well, he's literally Afro Samurai.
Exactly. So,
So,
I lost it. I was like, yep. So anime's cultural zeitgeist. It's here and it's staying.
yes, listeners, that's correct. Samuel L. Jackson was the voice of an anime character. So, yes, but yeah, even going to the scorn. But this is actually one of my favorite things about meeting people that love anime. Like, what's like the first interaction? Like,
Oh man. So like for me, it always goes like this. Either I recognize like a piece of merchandise that they're wearing. Either it's like a T-shirt or or like this one friend I have. Like he has like like them pod cases. And his case was in the shape of a devil fruit. I was like,
ooh,
so you into One Piece, my boy? He's like, yeah, I am. It's like, all right, and down the rabbit hole we go. It's like it's always starts with one thing, and then we just jumped into the whole anime spiral.
right. Yeah, for me, I kind of remember that first interaction in college where it was like, I think I saw somebody with like a One Piece shirt, or I think I was wearing a One Piece shirt, and then they were like, oh, is that One Piece? And then I was like, yeah, it is. And then just kind of like that discussion, and then like other people heard us and kind of came around. So then you kind of get into just like sharing different. Oh, did you watch this? Yeah, I watched that. Did you watch that? Yeah, I watched that. So it kind of just like the excitement of it, because it's not something that you typically brag about. Like, I feel like if you saw a Marvel movie, you could walk into a room and be like, Marvel this, Marvel that, and like not kind of like we said with the Tears of Scorn, where it's like there's not going to be like much static from it. But back then with anime, you're not just like, oh, boasting about it. Like, it's kind of like the secret conversations and whatnot.
I'm not gonna go into a class and just scream out shows like Dragon Ball Z. I see how many people gonna come up and talk to me. Well, I'm pretty sure a few people probably would, because Dragon Ball Z is Dragon Ball Z. But
Right.
if it's something else that X name here, like probably wouldn't get as much of a response.
Which makes sense. So just even before we got two more things to cover, but kind of just the positives and negatives of it, if we want to look at.
Oh yeah, so like some of the positives of anime. As I said, like adult themes, you can bring people together with it. There's like a whole community developed for it, which actually goes into both positive and negative. And depending on the anime, that music, bruh. Some of the theme songs be so fire. I have them on my workout playlist. That's how hard they get sometimes. Yeah, it's like action can be great. I mentioned plenty of times, stories can be great, and you can learn life lessons from them. And there's always like an anime for a specific person.
Right. That is so true.
And then on to the negatives. Oh boy. All right. So I mentioned the number one, which are the fans. Like the fans can tend to take things a bit far. And by a bit far, I mean go on a complete total rampage, like on some Star Wars levels of rampage. And that's kind of out there. There's also the fact of like some people may not like may be put off by like, oh, it's not like made in America, so like you may not get some of the cultural themes throughout,
Right.
unless you're cultured. Let's see what else. What else can be problematic with animes? Um, oh yeah, there's one specific one where it's like some fan service, if you will. Uh, some people may take that as a positive, some may take it as a negative. So I'm gonna leave that one as neutral and let you viewers decide on whether fan service is great or not.
Yeah. For me, positives you mentioned earlier, the animation can be so beautiful sometimes, like even more so than like real life. Where you're just like, how did people sit in a room and make this? Themes are like very just like high level. It's like not what you would expect sometimes. And then you're allowed to do more than just like an action stuff. Like even with say live action movies and like MCU and stuff like that, the action is incredible. But with anime, like you can like have explosions, bright colors. You can just kind of play with it as you would part of your imagination, which is so incredible. And then, yeah, fire themes. For the negatives, definitely kind of just like the over sexualization sometimes, and kind of what you said with fan service. Diversity is tricky because sometimes when they have black characters, I'm like, just don't have a black character. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I don't need this in my life. So yeah. And then also it's just like it's really hard to get new people to watch it if they're not deep into it or not receptive to it. I know there's like skits on like YouTube and stuff where it's just like you're watching it, everything's normal, and then all of a sudden you just like hear the high-pitched voice that doesn't match what you're watching. And it just kind of just like, oh, like if someone were to walk in, you're like, yo, this is normal, but they're like, yo, what are you watching? So that can be tricky sometimes, but so why we wanted to do this is like we're giving everyone just the opportunity we're cracking open the door and you can choose to walk in if you want to. So also we're going to get into terminology that you need to know and discuss. So do you want to share some?
Yes. So some terminology that is really needed in order to be an anime fan is weeb and otaku. They are they're kind of like synonyms in a way. It's so like if you're considered a weeb, that's where like you're so ingrained into it. Like you have posters all over your walls. You may have a body pillow. You kind of it's like you're so ingrained into it to where like, hey, you might be like speaking Japanese just because of anime or things of that nature. Like you treat anime as the second coming, and you just put that as like your top priority in life, to where like everything else just does not matter, and it is absolute. And it can be off-putting, and it especially gives like some anime fans a bad rap and a bad name. Otaku is kind of like a slightly less than that. It's like, oh yeah, they may do all those things, but they still know like where to put their like priorities in, and they don't treat it as like the end all be all and like have all that raging stuff. So it's like, hey, and like, hey, if you're an otaku, that's cool. If you're a weeb, bruh.
You're riding that line. Another two that just kind of go hand in hand. So a lot of animes are based off of manga. What's a manga? It's essentially, just think of it as a comic book for anime. That's the easiest way I can describe it. And with that, the stories in the manga are canon. So we kind of touched on it last week with Star Wars, but canon is essentially the main universally accepted story, or the story intended by the author of said work. So a lot of times when watching anime, people can say, oh, that's not canon, and this is canon. So things that aren't canon are...
Well, some things that aren't canon is the Shogo Dragon Ball GT, for example. Technically, it was not made by the creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, but like that's just an example of it. But another key example is stuff called filler.
Right.
Filler is where like an anime would either have their story come to a screeching halt and go and do something else, or they like pad out the time frame Reason being is most of the time, like anime are typically like coming, at least back in the day, most of the time they come out around the same time as the manga. So like at sometimes like they may be only like a few chapters or a few like manga volumes ahead, but anime can tend to like crush like numerous volumes into like a single episode. So there may come a time when an anime will catch up to the manga or even go past it. So in order to give the author like time to like write out the rest of the story, that's where filler comes in, and then they may come to a grinding halt, if you will.
Yeah, and when we get to one of our first subgenres, it's really dominated by filler, especially one of the some of the older versions of that, and that was a great description of it. Another thing to just kind of look at is arcs. So arcs are essentially like storylines within the main story. Think of your entire life as a story, and say that your elementary school, that's an arc. Your junior high or middle school, that's an arc. High school is an arc. Whether you go to college or not, that's an arc. Just like different phases of your life. So different phases of the story is an arc. So when we reference some things, they're referencing a specific set of episodes, specific set of storylines within chapters of the manga or light novels. So that's kind of what an arc is.
And now we're going into another one, which is the concept of subbed or dubbed. Now, okay, so we're coming to that, like traditionally, anime comes from Japan, so like they're spoken with Japanese like voice actors, so the language will be in Japanese. And as such, when it's ported over to the West, one of two things happen. Either they will keep it in Japanese, but they will put subtitles which translates what they say into a specific language of wherever you are from. That is considered sub. Now, dub, on the other hand, is where they completely just they will translate the script for the most part accurately. There's some liberties that can be taken, but they will translate the script and then give it to English or wherever you're from, like give it to voice actors of your country or language, and then they will be the ones to speak the lines and whatnot. And that one is a point of contention in and of itself, as many people like to say, like, hey, we like dub better because like I can understand it, or but we like subbed better because of the fact it's more accurate to the source material.
Right. Yeah. So for me, with that, I'm typically whatever I start with, I stick with. So that kind of just works the best. So like if I start something in dub, I'm not going to switch to sub unless it like gets far behind. I did that with Black Clover because this is too far behind. And if it's like in sub, I'll stick with sub just because I'm used to the voices. I'm kind of used to it. It's not really that big of a deal that people make it to be.
Yeah, it's like I'm much like you. It's like whatever I start in, that's what I'm gonna finish it in. So like, for example, like all of the Toonami stuff, like I started it in English, I'm gonna finish it in English, and I will probably for the most part watch it in English unless I'm bored, and I'll like look at the sub version just to see like, okay, let's see what differences there are. And if I watch a show in sub, I'll most likely keep it in sub throughout the entire time. As you mentioned, unless like either like something goes a grinding halt or like I just switch it over on a whim. But like I have no preference regardless.
Yeah, so I'm a person that watches telenovelas because I gotta have my stories. So I don't mind reading subtitles. But with that, any other terminology we'll just discuss as we come up. But right now we're gonna get in our just sailboats real quick. And then unlike a certain ninja, we're not gonna go too deep of a dive. But this is time for the deep dive section of the show. Do you want to explain shonen to us?
Yes. Okay, so shonen is actually a translation which means youthful. So pretty much it's typically like an anime that's like aimed towards boys, like roughly between the ages like 12 to 18-ish. And most of the time it comes from manga or a specific like manga studio called Shonen Jump, where they display like just a bunch of manga of that specific genre. And what they consist of It's a lot of like of your typical action or stuff that just captures like what most boys of those age would. So, like the action shows, the action shows, some of the more dramatic, if you will, and things just of that nature. You can think of you can just think of like a lot of them off the top of your head because they're the ones that are like the most popular.
Exactly.
And it's the one that's going to like grab the most money from not only just those in Japan, but those all around the world, because that's what like, because even though we're all like come from different cultures, as boys and some girls too, because girls are not included, we all tend to see and like a lot of the same things. Right. So that's pretty much like what shonen is at the most basic level. And in terms of like all right, so here's some of like the shows that you can think of when it comes to shonen, right? Think of like Dragon Ball, like the entire series, Dragon Ball Z, Super, GT, all of that is classified under shonen. You also get your stuff like One Piece, which is it's a great show, but goodness how long it is. Over 1,000 episodes. But hey, if you want to get on that journey, go ahead, because you'll never be able to say like, hey, I'm not without content.
Right.
And you get shows like Naruto, another of the big ones, Bleach, another one.
The big three.
The big three: Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, with the granddaddy of Dragon Ball.
Yep.
We also get like other shows such as Jujutsu Kaisen, Hunter x Hunter, Attack on Titan, Gintama, One Punch Man, Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha, which actually falls into like another category. And what you're gonna notice is that like a lot of these can go into multiple different stories. So like there can be shonen anime that can fall under adventure. It can fall under romance like Inuyasha is. Or it can be like a drama or horror or even mecha. It can just go into multiple different categories like that. Another one that I really love, and like it's like one of those that's a gateway, so like anybody can jump into it, and it's just a fantastic story overall. Full Metal Alchemist and its kind of reboot, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yes, and with Brotherhood, this is where the canon thing kind of comes into play. So the first Full Metal Alchemist completed before the manga was actually done, so they just kind of created their own story to it. And then with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, the manga was actually done, so the actual ending is canon, and Brotherhood is actually the #1 rated anime of all time.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely a good gateway. And yeah, I actually didn't know that's how it translated for shonen. But yeah, again, shonen is more of an age range category, but a lot. So we're kind of focusing on action. But why some of these that he mentioned are so popular is because they all have elite protagonists. For the most part, elite protagonists that you kind of get behind and just kind of root for.
Yep. Like when you think of like some of the elite protagonists, these are like some of the best characters. Like you think of like some of the more outgoing ones. You think of like Natsu from Fairy Tail, or Naruto, Luffy from One Piece, Goku,
the GOAT,
the absolute GOAT. And then people like Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. We're gonna get into that one a little bit later.
One day, yeah.
But yeah, so like when it comes to protagonists, like there are people who you can root for, and also like there's also antagonists in like a lot of these animes that you come to either despise, or at least you can kind of sympathize with and hoping that they turn good. In terms of the ones you absolutely despise, I'm looking at you, Frieza. You racist alien.
100%.
Absolute problem.
But yeah, I think one of the reasons that we get so invested in these characters, shonen is typically one of the longest genres. Well, yeah, one of the longest genres. So again, as you mentioned, like One Piece is over 1,000 episodes, so if you get into that, that's an investment. Bleach is over 300 episodes. Naruto has like 3 different series, which are nearing 1,000 total episodes together. But a lot of the reasons why they're so long is because they're a bunch of filler. And the filler some of the filler is really good and gives backstory, but a lot of it is just like nonsensical.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Naruto, because of the fact like the Naruto series, as I mentioned earlier, like sometimes ran concurrently with the manga and got ahead, so it created just so much filler. I mean, it has gotten to the point where there's actual lists online that tell you like, okay, these episodes are canon and these ones are not, so these are the ones you can skip and you wouldn't miss a thing.
I had to use that for the rewatch of Shippuden.
Yeah, and that's bad. But you know what's even worse? There's this stigma like with anime, right? And especially within the anime fans. And unfortunately, like it's a question that gets asked too many times. It is because like whenever you mention like just protagonists and like how within their story they gain more power and they become stronger and whatnot, the first question many people will ask, and it is, can they beat Goku though? Look, I'm talking to you now, fans. Yeah, so listen, I love Goku. He's great. He's a goat. He can't be replaced. He can't be touched, all right? But you gotta stop comparing people to him. Like, there are some anime where it's like, it's not always about the power. It's about the story. Like, look at Full Metal Alchemist, for example.
Right.
Like, main character, Edward Elric, he does not get to, like, planetary, galactic levels of power, and yet people will still ask, can you beat Goku, though?
Right.
There are people who will ask, like, can Deku from My Hero Academia beat Goku? And you're just like, fam, there are 2 different verses with 2 separate
Power scalings.
So how can you even make that comparison? I'll give you the One Punch Man though. Mm-hmm. I'll give you that one because that was kind of raw.
Saitama would beat Goku.
I'm not even gonna get into any debates on that. I'm not gonna lay out my personal feelings on the matter because like it doesn't matter in the end.
That's true.
Even though Goku will win, but really, it's all about like the fun, the main fun within these different characters and whatnot. So yeah, that's my little mini rant. Please stop the can they beat Goku though, because it's played out and it's tiring.
Another thing that's pretty funny is the power of friendship in Shonen. This is the moment where it's kind of like they're fighting a villain, and then they go power of friendship, and then it's just like a power boost where they either turn the villain into a good guy, or they essentially
clap them,
or they essentially like recruit all their friends and they beat them with the power of friendship. But just kind of wrapping up with a few more recommendations, just as also a heads up, you can catch most anime on either Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, Crunchyroll, or Funimation. And if you're really deep into anime, you know where to find it yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that. But 2 that I really love, Black Clover, which really just came around after the Witch arc, in my opinion. And it's definitely a fire one. And then Demon Slayer. So Demon Slayer is one that continually breaks the internet. So those 2 are really hype. So just wrapping up with Shonen, kind of geared more towards a younger boy crowd, but it's really for everyone. We focus more on the Shonen action side of it. But yeah, it's just the different one. So you can take any of those recommendations, and if you have the time and investment, you can really get into it deeper. So for the next one, we're going into adventure. So this adventure is really tricky because a lot of stories have adventures within them. But for me, I think the funny part of the adventure genre is that with anime having a lot of teens and just kids in times, you see the bad parenting exposed. Oh man. So just even with Pokemon, I mean, Ash, he literally goes on adventures every season. And it's just him and 2 other kids. And they just go all around the world and they have these 2 stalkers chasing them.
How is he still 10 years old?
We're not going to get into that. But yeah, I mean, just like you see, just like a lot of parents are like, yeah, you can go on an adventure. Hunter x Hunter is another one which is shonen, but also it's like an adventure one. That's really good. But yeah, do you have anything with adventure?
Oh man, well, it's like when it comes to that, like there's a lot of many different things when it comes to adventuring. Like most of it is, at least when it comes to it, it's about like the journey, if you will. So like people are just like it's all about like all the friends you gather or like you're gathering on that journey and just all of the good times, maybe some of the bad times that happens in there, or just anything of that nature. So when it comes to adventures, like it's actually quite accessible.
Yeah, I really like adventures too because like sometimes you'll run into very eccentric characters, and with that, sometimes it's like one-shot characters. So it's just kind of like you'll meet this one crazy old guy and like he'll give you like sage advice. And then there's another one where you'll meet like a little girl, but she's actually like 60 years old or something like that because she's trapped in the wrong body or something like that. But yeah, Adventures was really good. And I like what you said about just like the people that you meet, the friendships and journey along the way. So even just with that, we talked about the joy of going on an adventure, but like, what would you do? Where would you go?
Oh man, for me, let's see, travel around the world, get a chance to train under the best masters or try to become the very best like no one ever was.
Bars.
Or become the king games, if you will. But yeah, it's like that would be like some of the things I do, just try to it's like make more friends, become stronger, and end up accidentally becoming a shonen protagonist because I end up talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, I think for me, I would love to go on a treasure hunt. I think just like because a lot of adventures, I don't want to go on a world ending, like save the world type of adventure, but just like a treasure hunt, the fun of it, just really connecting with people, kind of just like the chase of it. And then it's like on an adventure, you're really carefree, which is different from like the shonen action that we talked about, where it's like you're constantly fighting world ending threats or like, yeah, to that extent. But on adventures, it's like, okay, it's serious at times, but okay, we're also having fun. Like I mentioned before, meeting new people and just like having that one track mind, being carefree, that's definitely where I want to go. So just a few adventures that I can even think of. We mentioned Pokemon, Digimon, which has one of the most fire intro songs on the original one that I love. Cowboy Bebop, which is an OG in anime, 100% like Cowboy Bebop, like I believe it came out 90s, correct? It's very inspirational in terms of just like music integration. So like if you want to listen up even a song, the opening is called Tank. If you listen to Tank, it's like really jazz inspired and incredible opening. Samurai Champloo, which is kind of like the same general feel of a Cowboy Bebop, just like the song and the music and the atmosphere is almost as vital to the story. And then kind of just go into the more darker adventures, Vinland Saga. That's a high level adventure story, but just like really just like Norse mythology integrated into anime is really cool. And then one of the most popular animes that a lot of, I want to say newer people to anime, but people that have been in it for a long time is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Hey.
It's just so fun.
Hey. The poses. You know the memes when you see them.
Yes. And just even with that, do you have a favorite of the JoJo clan?
Jotaro.
You have to.
Jotaro Kujo. I can't do anybody other than the main man himself.
Which is absolutely incredible. So I believe he's the third, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I really love Diamond is Unbreakable, but my favorite character is Koichi, not Josuke in that episode. Well, in that series, but it has to be Jotaro. And then, yes, in Golden Wind, with Dio, Offspring. That's a really good one, too.
Oh, yeah. Love them. And do you have any more recommendations?
Those were the main ones, you?
Yes. So I have a couple of them that are really great. So firstly, if you didn't catch like my whole thing before, the Yu-Gi-Oh series, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, 5Ds.
So you would consider that an adventure? I didn't know where to put that one, which was tricky.
Yeah, so like it's like a mix of adventure because they're going around dueling people
Right.
with their cards or dueling on motorcycles, but it's also considered a shonen as well because
Nice.
because it debuted in the Shonen Jump mangas.
I actually have a Yu-Gi-Oh story, which
Oh
is
boy.
funny. So I can't say the teacher's name or the school, but in 7th grade, me and my friends, we were huge Yu-Gi-Oh fans. So we would have Yu-Gi-Oh battles in class, or dual monster battles in class. But the teacher wasn't our homeroom teacher, but she would come in sometimes and she would be like, no, you're not supposed to play any type of cards in school. So she would take them. Well, she wouldn't take them, but she would stop us from playing it. And then one day, I remember it so vividly. We had a kind of like a bus drill evacuation for middle school. So you get on the bus and you get off in case of emergency. So it's a practice. But since I went to a school really close to the ghetto, there was a bullet on the bus.
Hey yo.
So, but the thing is, we were in the middle of a dual monsters battle for Yu-Gi-Oh! Prior to getting on the bus. So when we get off the bus, they check everybody. And guess what we all have in our bags and in our pockets? Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So guess what they do? They take all our Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
No.
Oh man, they took my summon school. I was so sad.
No, that's tragic. That's tragic.
So yeah, just keep going. I'm depressed now.
But don't worry. You're talking to a former Yu-Gi-Oh champion. I actually went to like Worlds and I was competitive back in the day.
Who was your main?
I actually played like heroes,
Oh, that's
like
nice.
elemental heroes and whatnot. But yeah, I'm retired now. So don't try to come at me, otherwise you're getting clapped. But yeah, so like those theories, I consider that. There's just anything by Studio Ghibli.
Oh yes.
Like, firstly, animation quality, perfection.
Even for its time.
Perfection. The musical scores in those, perfection. Just anything by that studio, just look it up. There's just too many to mention. I can't pick any of them to choose between. Just watch them all.
And a lot of those are on HBO Max, just so you know.
Yes, watch them all on HBO Max. And then, as you mentioned, we going into the dark side. And I have one in particular. It falls under both shonen with a little bit of horror in there. Berserk.
Ooh. Wow. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Berserk. That one's. It starts off fine until you get to the backstory of Guts, the main protagonist, and you get to a certain point in the story, which I'm not gonna spoil, but good lord, that story does not become the same after a certain point.
Yes, and the original one, not the remake.
No. R.I.P. to the author who passed away, but goodness, that story. Whew. Oh man, now I need to call.
We gotta recover from our sadness now.
We gotta recover from our sadness a bit by going into another category, which may or may not also be depressing. It's called isekai.
Yes.
Now, isekai is essentially translated to another world. So the whole premise of that anime type is that your main protagonist ends up getting transported to another world, whether it be like a fantasy, sci-fi, just whatever, just a different world entirely. Mm-hmm. And it's just them either trying to just live in that world, solve whatever conflict that may be happening there, or them trying to go home. Now, the whole thing about like the isekai anime is that typically most of them, most of the main protagonists gets isekai'd in a lot of similar ways.
Yes.
And it mostly involves them dying, mostly by a certain individual, mm-hmm. Or I shouldn't say individual, more like an entity, a thing, the thing that slays most people. It's known as Truck-kun. Truck-kun, an utter menace. Should be at the round table. Oh wait, he is. But yeah, so like typically most of the time, like the main characters gets like either run over by a vehicle or like save somebody by getting run over by a vehicle or anything like that, and then they die, but they end up getting transported to other worlds. But that ain't the only method
Right.
of getting isekai'd. You want to
So
talk about that?
a lot of other ones are they get summoned. It's usually like a fantasy world where they summon because they need a hero to kind of just like save that world. A lot of things in isekai is also you have to defeat a demon lord, so that's one big key element to getting summoned. Sometimes it's just like a gamer. You log in and then you're just kind of stuck in the game, which we'll mention. One of the big pioneers of isekai is Sword Art Online. So Sword Art Online has a lot of is very divisive on how people feel about it. I watched it and I understand the kind of just the general disagreement about it, but I would say it's like a 7 out of 10 maybe, depending on the season. But Sword Art Online definitely kickstarted isekai in my opinion. And then another one is just like you typically fall asleep, you wake up in a different world.
Yeah, yeah. Sword Art Online, I honestly give it like first season, great, falls off from there.
The Alicization picked it back. It saved it in my opinion,
Yeah,
but it definitely drops off. Yeah.
exactly. It just drops off like a man jumping off a cliff to get isekai'd. But yeah, I can just think of like, man, just what are some like the best places to get isekai'd?
So yeah, definitely not a From Software game. So no Elden Ring, no Sekiro, no none of that, no Bloodborne, because you won't survive at all. But I would love to go to a place where I'm OP. So
Yeah, yeah. I would love to go to just any place where either I get too much power, or if I'm like a certain main character from our Patreon sponsored episode,
Yep.
I would just want to live my life peacefully until they just want to drag me into it.
Yeah.
But going into that, like just a couple of recommendations of it. As I mentioned on our Patreon sponsored episode, we talked about this one called "Date Trapped in a Dating Simulator." A really great story. You can find it on Crunchyroll, and you can listen to our review of that on Patreon by subscribing. Just look up Blurred City Pod. Other ones that I can think of is ReZero, great solid one. Konosuba, which is just absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
Had me dying. Talk about Overlord, which is just an amazing one.
Which is coming out. It should come out by the time you hear this podcast
Yep.
for the new season.
Another one is The Time I Got Reincarnated as Slime.
Yes, I cannot believe I forgot that one. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that one is just great because it's just it's like you think like, hey, I got reincarnated as slime. You think like that would just be the end of it. It's like, yeah, this person done for. No, it is a story about proving that even though you in the least, you get to become the absolute most.
Yes, and just for listeners, a slime is like a monster that's like the lowest level of a monster, like level 1 typically. So you beat that as an adventurer to start the game.
Yep. And then another one, which again, we getting dark once again. Saga of Tanya the Evil.
That's so fun though.
It is fun, but good lord, what the main character does is outright, just outright Black Air Force. It's outright out of here. But yeah, did you have any more?
Only one I have at the moment is The Rising of the Shield Hero, which is rising in popularity. Season 2 just ended. Season 3 was already confirmed by the time Season 1 ended, which lets you know how popular it is. But it's definitely that first season, first episode. Wow. So I think like I definitely want to do a character study of Naofumi. And that could be a Patreon episode as well. But that's definitely an incredible one. That's the only other one I have at the moment. But getting into our next category is romance. So romance is very, very popular one. A lot of different variety, a lot of different high level ones. But just with that, what you'll typically see in a romance is less. I'll just walk you through the love interests and like archetypes of them. So the first one is a tsundere. So what that is typically if you would see a character, particularly a female in this case, where they go, oh, I give you this bag of roses. And it's like, oh, it's not like I wanted to give it to you, but it's just like essentially them denying their feelings, but acting them at the same time. Next one is the childhood friend one, which is the most depressing one because they almost always get rejected, which is just hilarious. Next one is yandere, which I'll just say they're very clingy, and I'll leave it at that. Next one is the quiet shy type, so think Hinata in Naruto. And then the other one is like the super calm, almost emotionless type, followed by enemy to lover, and then also the one that teases a lot.
Man. Out of all of these, I think I would want either the childhood friend, or the quiet slash shy one.
Yeah, definitely.
Cause best believe I ain't never in my life gonna choose a young. Best believe. Which one is you picking?
I would the same because like quiet shy is kind of like my type, and then childhood friend is just like that previous friendship kind of like you build upon. But even with that, even talking about our types, another key term is shipping. If you want to explain that.
Oh yes. So shipping is where pretty much it's basically like it's like fan casting, but it's like fan casting romances. So people like to typically take like, okay, these two characters, and it's like, oh, what would be great is if they got into a relationship, or if these people got into a relationship. And sometimes like people be right when it comes to the shipping, and then sometimes they be all the way wrong, or they may be choosing some ships that you just know would never ever in a billion years happen. We're looking at you, all the people who try to ship Deku with Bakugo, or just like all of the male to male shippers when you know that there's another person who is much better for them in the long run. Sir, can y'all calm down with those type of ships? You know it probably ain't gonna work out. But yeah, it's almost like fan casting, and sometimes like the authors take those into account. Mm-hmm. Either they already had the plans laid out and you're now picking up on it, which is why you're casting those people together, or they didn't lay the groundwork for it, and then they see like, oh snap, wait, these people might actually be good together, and then they write it in.
Yeah. So with shipping, it's definitely be careful. Once you start shipping, you get really invested in characters. So and if you come across someone that's on the opposite ship, it could be dangerous. But just with that, some recommendations. Toradora is my favorite romance anime of all time. It's really incredible. The main kind of pairing is like a tsundere, and it's like one of the OG tsunderes with Taiga, but it's really good. And then just going from there, I have two movies. Both of these movies are like S tier movies. So the first one is Your Name, which is absolutely incredible. And the next one is A Silent Voice, which makes me weep every time. A Silent Voice is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen in my life. So, and then just with shows, Fruits Basket, I haven't seen this, but I heard it's like really one of the best ones to watch. And then also a new one is Horimiya, which is absolutely incredible in terms of animation and story.
All right. Yes. And now it's time where we get even sadder with my recommendations. First thing we are picking is Clannad. Clannad is a great story. It is an excellent romance. As I said, we get sad, so I'm just going to leave it at that. You figure out what happens later. And then another one, Your Lie in April.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that afterwards. Oh my goodness.
Oh yes, we are going there. We are going into pure sadness and depression here, folks. Of just romances, and because love hurts. Mm-hmm. Love hurts. But yeah, those are some of my recommendations for that. And now we get into one of my favorites.
Yep.
The mechas. Yes, sir. All right. So when it comes to mecha anime, it's typically more like, all right, so it's just like, because the main appeal of mechas is like the mechs, the
Yep.
giant robots that the main characters either pilot or they remote control pilot, and they just go all out and go wild with it. And with that, like, because of just like, hey, all you mainly need is just some mechas and them using it on a regular basis, it can fit into pretty much any of the other categories.
Correct.
For the most part. And there's mainly like two different types of mechas. You can either have the real or the super. Real robots is like they typically try to obey the laws of physics for the most part.
Right.
That's where like, okay, we can create stuff in real life and whatnot. Big examples like mostly of the Gundam series, like they're pretty much mostly like real life, is you can tell like with war and whatnot.
That was definitely like my big intro into mecha and just like giant robot fightings in general.
Yep, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. That's what it is. But then you get the super robots.
Whew.
The super robots, bruh. Those are the ones that pretty much go to like Dragon Ball Z levels of spectacle, and they just like to go all the way out there, and just pretty much display powers like, oh, so like where's the, but then people don't ask like, hey, but can they be Goku though? They never ask that with the mechas though. So hey, what's y'all issue, fans? Why y'all putting it against people, but you can't put Goku against a mech? I don't know. But that's my rant on there. But
So we're just gonna have to introduce a new segment called Meech versus the fans eventually.
oh man, I'm gonna do my best to try to get canceled if we do that segment. But yeah, but when it comes to that, like, what do you think of like what's kind of like the best mecha designs?
I really love the Gundam series just because it's like the realisticness and then like robots with wings looks cool for some reason, and I don't know why. Like it just looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah, yes, because they kind of look like angels, and we can't have wings yet, but but best believe if we can have like a mech suit, we can do that. And also what I kind of like is that like for me, like sometimes when I watch them, I pretend like, oh man, what if like you took like the mech suit, but then you compact it down to be kind of like an Iron Man armor.
Ooh, yes.
That you can like actually just wear. Bruh, do you know how much carnage I would do with that?
Yeah.
Anybody who tries to come after your boy, put on the Gundam suit and go ham?
Right.
Oh man. But yeah, it's like pretty much most of the time it's almost always the humanoid designs that always like stick out and just like, yeah, those is it. Those are it. And really like what I like to get at with it is just topic of symbolism. It's like when it comes to the mecha anime, as I said, like pretty much it can go into like other different categories, but like there's almost like a lot of commonalities into a lot of them, specifically with the Gundam series. If you want to like touch into that.
I just know of Gundam like a big one is war. Always touching on it, and a lot of time just like with anime in general, they like have kids fighting, which does touch on just like unfortunately real world situations as well. So that's definitely like something that I connect to.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much like the main commonality with almost all of them. Is just like,
Right.
all right, we're using mechas as a stand-in for soldiers during war.
Yeah.
But and it's like it's kind of like the way like, okay, it's like you can watch like a World War II esque anime, but if you have mechas in them, it kind of like, okay, now we can like make it more palatable to the general viewer.
Right.
Because like, okay, we're not actually seeing the people killing each other. We're just seeing a mech kill another mech, which happens to have a person inside of it, but that's neither here nor there. That's kind of the whole thing with Stormtrooper syndrome. It's like, you never see the face.
Yeah, so it's like just working around that. And you have any recommendations as well?
Oh, yes. So pretty much like my recommendations are, as we mentioned, the Gundam series. Like any of them, like Mobile Suit Gundam, a Mobile Fighter G Gundam, one of my favorites. Gundam Wing, the GOAT. And also like one of my other favorite GOATs is Mobile Suit Gundam 00, which is basically Gundam Wing but on crack. So it is out there and it is great. But Yeah, another ones I had was Eureka 7, which kind of like ties into the romance a bit. So it's like a mecha with romance in there. Mazinger, or in the Mazinger series, that also is goated. Technically, Voltron
Yeah.
is a mecha anime. So if you think about like the OG Voltrons, like in all of its numerous reboots, that's a mecha. 86.
Oh, I finished season 2. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy. 86 is just it's just goated. I ain't even gonna say more about that.
Yeah.
But then there's the big one. The one where you have to be in the right mind space for, and you just have to be prepared mentally and physically for every episode.
Yeah.
And every movie. Neon Genesis Evangelion.
So do you just want to get into just like the the searching that you have to do with that one?
Oh boy, you have to go down a rabbit hole for that one. Essentially, you gotta have to find that on any of pretty much like whatever platform that you want to find it on.
I know season 1 is on Netflix, the original.
Yes, like it is on Netflix. Whether or not it's like the best one you can look for, because I heard like the Netflix version like is a different dub in its entirely.
Well, I did sub for that, I believe.
I think like sub should be fine, but like the dub is like completely ew. but yeah, so like yeah, just watch it on Netflix. It's a great one, and then the Evangelion movies are just fantastic, retellings of the show. And yeah, do you have any other recommendations?
Only other one other than Gundam is Gurren Lagann, which is a really fun one. Roro Fight the Power, search that song up. But yeah, Gurren Lagann is a fun mecha, and it kind of goes into the fun non-physicsy side of actually moving with mechas.
Yeah.
So going from there, we get into the one that a lot of people like really love. Well, it's kind of multiple categories, but because we didn't know how to address them, but we have drama, psychological, and horror. So in these categories, we witness elite storytelling. So just even starting, a big one that a lot of people that get into anime for the first time and like are starting to search out is Death Note.
Ooh.
Death Note has one of the greatest stories and one of the greatest protagonists ever written. So just like a minor details of it, it's essentially this kid, he gets this book called The Death Note, and in it, if he writes your name, and then you essentially die. So he can determine how that happens, or he can just write your name, leave it, and then you just drop dead. And it's just like the search of him trying to like not get caught is so good. A lot of people talk about a drop off after a certain point, but it's far enough into the show where it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. If you even want to just like kind of touch on this, these subgenres as well.
Oh yes. Well, firstly, I want to talk about just the greatness that is Death Note, and just the topic of protagonist versus hero, because there's a distinction. Because whenever like you can have because protagonist just means the focus of a story.
Right.
The hero just means like, your standard hero. But they don't necessarily have to be the same thing.
No, they do not.
Because of just how protagonists work. Like as I said, it's just the focus of the story. So essentially you can have like a villain be the protagonist, or you can have like somebody who's more dubious, if you will, to being the protagonist. If you like, for example, if you look at the story of the Star Wars prequels, it's like you look at Anakin Skywalker, and specifically Episode 3, he ain't no hero.
Right.
He ain't no hero at all. He's outright the villain. It's a villain origin story, and that's the case with like a lot of different animes. So like, just wanted to like put that that distinction out there when you're looking at other ones, but. Yeah, it's like when it comes to like these genres like drama, psychological, and horror, like they have pretty much just top tier storytelling, like stuff that you just go like, oh, that's how it's going down. Hold on, I need to watch more. Or in the case of some horror shows, it'd be like, oh, that's so visceral. Let me keep watching.
Yes.
I can't look away.
And just like another one that is like, it's Not, it has mechas in it, but it's also a part of just like this. It's not based on the mecha, but Code Geass, Lucia the Rebellion, just any Code Geass is like really good. That has one of the best protagonists in it, and what I really just love about this, all these genres, it forces you to put on your detective hat. So you're constantly thinking, even if you know that some of them are the villains, you're just kind of like, you're rooting for them in a sense because you're playing along with them mentally. Like, how do I get away from stuff? How do I get away with it? How do I clear my name? And just like different levels of that. And then even kind of just like their purposes behind it. So getting into just a few more recommendations that I have. We have Parasite, which is more of a horror. So it's not the movie, but it's the anime, and essentially it's like this parasite takes over this guy's hand, and we just kind of go from there. It gets really dark.
It's not Venom, but yeah, I love it.
It's really, really good. And then just two more that I have. We have Erased, which it's not an isekai, but it kind of has isekai themes in terms of a character. They go back in times to their younger self in order to kind of just like fix what happened and solve a mystery. And Erased has one of the best openings, one. And then just the story is like we said again, like we can't say it enough. This has the best storytelling in our opinion. And then kind of like the spiritual successor to Erased is Tokyo Revengers. Ooh. So it's essentially like this guy, he gets reincarnated to save the love of his life. But in order to do that, he has to go back in time to his younger self, around in middle school. And what's crazy about Tokyo Revengers is that there are middle school characters absolutely staging gang wars all across the city.
It's pure hands. It's Black Air Force the anime. Like, hands are thrown all the time, and all these people are in middle school.
It's wild. So, yeah, you got any recommendations?
Yes, I do. And a lot of these lean more towards the horror and psychological side. We have Tokyo Ghoul.
Ooh.
Oh man, that one's disturbing. But don't watch the season 2. Just don't watch it.
Just stop after season 1.
Yep, just stop after season 1. You'll be fine. But I say Jason is a menace.
Oh my gosh.
And then we have this other one called Corpse Party. And Corpse Party is out there. It's actually like based on a game that's also based on like an old Japanese like fairy tale / game. So it gets wild quickly. A lot of blood and guts there, and then another one that's also a horror thing, but also can fit into shonen, Hellsing.
Ooh, yes.
Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate are just top tier. Specifically, Ultimate is just top tier. Yes, top tier animation. The main character, Alucard, which if you get the name, there you go. He's just one of the best protagonists. And I just say he has probably some of the most terrifying and some of the most boss lines I could think of for an anime protagonist to say, because he ain't just no regular protagonist. He is out here with the forces.
Yeah, and even if you mention that, that makes me also think of Castlevania.
Oh!
So, just Castlevania, it's done, it's completed, it's on Netflix. Just take time to watch that. It's absolutely just amazing.
Oh yeah.
All right.
And now that we've calmed down from just all of the chicanery of all of the nonsense that be happening, we get to calm down with the next anime category, which is slice of life.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. So slice of life anime are kind of like what it says on the tin. It's just basically anime where it just follows the lives of just different people as they just go through different shenanigans, different chicanery that takes place. It's almost always like none supernatural or just nothing just out of the blue just happens that just makes it like one of the other types. It's just straight. Like it's always on the straight and narrow, and you just go like, okay, like I'm just watching like these people just get into hijinks.
Right.
And like a question that's like asked like, hey, how close does it get to real life? I mean, in my opinion, I say like it gets pretty close sometimes. Like sometimes you may like find anime where you just see like people going to the store,
Yeah.
and then like it turns out one of them may like forgotten their wallet in order to go home, so like they have to travel all the way back home and then just hit like every roadblock on the way. And like what's great about it is that like because of the animation quality of it, it pretty much just goes like, okay, we're just getting through all these chicanery and all this nonsense, and it's like, but the animation makes it seem like so much fun. And it's like, man, I wish my life was like that animated.
Right. Yeah, with Slice of Life, you kind of have to be in the mood to watch it. It's like 90% lighthearted. A lot of kind of the genres that we mentioned, mostly romance, tends to fall in Slice of Life as well. But one of the tricky things about Slice of Life, I would say, is that sometimes there's a plot and then sometimes there's not. And what I mean by that is like in a lot of shows that we mentioned, there's this one overarching plot that they cover every episode. With Slice of Life, sometimes one episode can be broken down into 5 parts, and sometimes it focuses on the main characters, sometimes it focuses on side characters, and like you mentioned, it can be like the main plot is like, okay, we need to achieve this one goal, and then but some of the subplots are like dodgeball fights, which are hilarious. 2 of which that I'll mention, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid and then Spy Family. They both have dodgeball fights, which are absolutely incredible to watch.
Huh, yeah.
But I really love it because you can just like you said, you can turn your brain off to these and just really enjoy it.
Yeah, and that was like the main thing is the fact that with these slice of life animes, like you really don't have to think too much. It's like with all these other ones, it's like, okay, if I have to pay attention intently, it's like if I miss like any detail or like if I miss an episode, I may be lost. With the slice of life anime, you can just tune in to like almost any episode and you be fine.
Right.
Think of it as like The Simpsons or Family Guy or like American Dad or just any of like those different type of shows or cartoons where, or like even Friends, if you think of like that. Like if you watch them, it's just like, okay, I'm just following just the lives of these people and see what hijinks they get into. Except this time it's in anime form.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like one of my recommendations is called The Daily Lives of High School Boys, which exactly what it says on the tin is. It's like a group of friends, like a group of guys, and it also has like a group of girls in there as well. It's like as they just get into hijinks, like either separately or together, like it's just hilarious. It's also another one called Durarara, which is just absolute insanity. And it also can kind of go under adventure as well, but it leans more towards slice of life than anything else. Another one I had was this anime called Nichijou.
Oh, I was thinking about it, but I couldn't remember the name.
Yes, I like for the life of me, I was thinking like, okay, what was the anime that I saw where it had the principal sequence of deer? I was like, what was the name of that anime? Had to look it up. It's like Nichijou.
That's
Yes.
exactly what I was thinking about when you mentioned just like random stuff happening.
Yes, like again, just randomness happening such as that, and all of them found on your just standard sites and whatnot. So yeah, do you have any other recommendations?
Other than just like Miss Kobayashi, like I mentioned, Spy Family again just ended, and it's one of the like rated top 10 animes of all time, and it's coming back in October, so you can catch up with season 1. Another one that I was surprised about, apparently Mob Psycho 100 is a slice of life.
Huh?
Like I was looking it up, and it was like like there were like 5 categories for it, but it was like one of them was slice of life, which I was surprised about.
Interesting.
But Mob Psycho 100 coming back for its 3rd season is really good. And just with that, it's like this character who's very emotionless, but when he starts to feel emotion, it counts it off, which I love how they do that. And then he starts to power up with his psychic powers.
Yep. And now we get into our last category.
So for the last category, there are other categories just to mention. There's comedy, there is music, which is a very popular one, and just other subcategories that you can look up. But we're going to wrap it up with sports. So sports animes are picking up in popularity. They cover a wide variety of sports, I would say. Some even shockingly that they cover. But just with that, like, do they even reflect real life sometimes?
Sometimes they do. It sometimes get into like somewhat of the slice of life section, but sometimes these characters it seems like they have like superpowers, if you will, especially when playing a certain sport. You just go like, how?
Yes.
Ain't no way. Oh yeah, I'm thinking about like just one in particular where the main character has like this special ability, and you're just like, how? And there ain't no way that like if this sport was if this happened in real life in professional sports, like no.
You want to share?
It's the main character of Kuroko no Basket.
Yes, which is on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, and like he has the ability where like nobody notices him.
Yeah.
So like he can just be there to either like pass the ball or shoot or just anything of that nature, and nobody's like there to guard him because they just don't know he exists. And you're just like, no. No, in the NBA, you will see every player. They know the field.
Yes.
And they know all the times and the shot clocks, unless you're talking about old boy who held the ball for the Lakers. I'm not going to get into that.
So with Kuroko no Basketball, which is my favorite sports one, his presence is so low that people don't notice him. He can't physically disappear. But all the powers in general of Kuroko no Basketball are so just wow. Do you have any other recommendations?
Oh man, yeah. Like I have this one called Hajime no Ippo, which is a fantastic boxing anime, and like it was so good. Like, man, it almost makes me want to start like boxing and start fighting people. Oh no, wait, that was just boxing. Fighting people is actually for my next recommendation, called Baki.
Oh yes,
Both the original Baki the Grappler and then Baki on Netflix. Good lord, the hands that are thrown in that show are legendary.
So yeah, for me, just kind of, I like how you touched on, did it make you want to play a sport based on watching that anime? I wouldn't say for me, no, but a few others are Haikyuu, which is a volleyball anime, and it's probably the highest rated sports anime, I would say. Definitely the highest regarded. Next one is Sora the Duck, which is really close to Kuroko no Basketball, but it's more realistic in terms of just like abilities of the players. And I really like the journey of those teams just coming together and trying to unite through sports. Two other ones are Ace of the Diamond and then Prince of Tennis.
Nice. Well, hey, those are like some excellent anime and some excellent recommendations. I may actually like have some to add to the list.
Yeah.
And now it comes the time where we take off our scuba diving gear as we get into our sponsor break. And our sponsor for today is the Anime Valley. In the case where you want to just go out and experience anime for yourselves, such as being able to fight Son Goku or being able to cook super great for the main characters in Toriko, you are able to experience what it feels like to be in an anime. Now, please be sure that we are not responsible for any and all speculation and any and all damages or injuries sustained during this trip to the Anime Valley. Your discretion is advised. Please come out to the Anime Valley.
Yeah, now that we're back from our sponsor break and we're up from air, just like, again, where you can find all these animes, Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, Crunchyroll, Funimation, or if you know somebody in your life, they can hook you up. But just like with that, we had like a really great episode. All the ground is shaking. There's power. The reishi, the spiritual pressure is just too much for me. It's not feeling good right now. I think I know what's about to happen, but I'm gonna just get out of here.
Yes. So it is time, our dear listeners, for the Black Air Force segments. And it's funny that you mentioned spiritual pressure and reishi because of the fact that this anime is coming back and that we are about to experience greatness once again in the form of Bleach. I have the perfect character to be introduced to the Black Air Forces, and his name is Ukiura Cypher. Ukiura is the fourth Espada, aka one of the big antagonists of this series, and he is an utter monster. First thing that he does when he comes up on the scene, and he just stands there menacingly while his bro Yami just does all the work, while he just stands there silent, because a Black Air Force is so strong with him that he does not need to move. Everybody knew that he was the problem. It wasn't Yami, it was him. And what better way to prove that than when he kidnapped Orohime. Now, she did come willingly, but he did pull out the Black Air Forces and twist her arm in the sense of either you come with me, or all your friends and your lover, Ichigo, is getting clapped by me, and me alone, because he has that much Black Air Force in him. And throughout the entire show, you never seen him fight for episodes upon episodes, just him in his presence. He just pops in to stop somebody from getting murked. He pops in to just say, hey, I'm that guy, don't mess with me. But when you first see him get into a tussle with Ichigo, our main protagonist, Ichigo goes full power with his hollow state, and he does nothing to him. He full power Getsuga Tensho's Ukiura, and he tanks it like a boss. He eats it like it was breakfast. And then he just proceeds to donut Ichigo. Put a hole right through his chest and leave him dead. Now the next time that they fight, Ichigo, for some unknown reason, decides to go for the run back, and this was the most saucy fight that you've ever experienced, because Ukiura, he does not even transform at all, yet he is giving Ichigo the work, like the point where he tries to get to Tensho Ukiura and then run past him, only for Ukiura, without looking, hits him with the Seto energy blast without looking at him. Come on, son. You're demon time. But the demon time only got worse when he finally released and becomes his first form. And the big thing about him is that he was clapping Ichigo in his full power hollow state, just saying, oh, clap, 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 just knocking him around left and right. And of course, Ichigo wouldn't back down. And this perturbed him. This perturbed Ukiura so bad, it's like, my Black Air Forces ain't working on you? No, fine. Second release. And here's the thing. When he transforms for the second time, he's the only one who could. Between all of the other Espada, 3, 2, and 1, which are increasing in power, even 0, none of them could transform a second time. He's the only one that could. And what does that mean when he transforms a second time? He is full on Black Air Force personified. His Seto even reflects the Black Air Forces as it becomes black in color. And he decides to clap Ichigo even more badly than he did before. And unfortunately, he decides to donut him again. This time for good. He kills Ichigo. Protagonist killer, everybody. Put him in the round table immediately. And unfortunately, due to plot armor and main character convenience, Ichigo decides to come back, full hollow, more powerful than ever. He manages to clap Ukiura. Unfortunately, Ukiura has like a special move which he can fire multiple times, which ends up only one of them is needed to destroy the entire area that they're in, and he can fire multiple at will. Nah, it was too much. It was too much for him. Unfortunately, he decides to get clapped back, but the true Black Air Force doesn't end, because when he's about to get murdered by Ichigo, he says one of the most Black Air Force things ever. He says, all right, I lost. You know what? Finish me. You ain't gonna do it. You a coward. Do it. I have no purpose of kill me. Finish me. And he tries to, but he doesn't get finished. He manages to save Ichigo from becoming a full-blown monster at the last second, and then Ukiura dies, while finally managing to do the order he made what Ichigo couldn't, and that was steal her heart for the last time, and the only time for the first portion. And that is Ukiura's cipher. A true Black Air Force. Debate's still going on to this day whether he was the strongest of the Espada, because of the fact he has a second form that none of the others knew about. Not even his creator Aizen. And fortunately, he may have transitioned to the Black Air Force table, but his legacy still lives on. Please come get your Black Air Forces, because your spiritual pressure is immense, and your Black Air Force energy is even greater.
Listeners, we don't I don't know what who's coming to the table or who's getting in the shoes. So like when I said spiritual pressure, I did not know he was going Bleach, which was literally one of my top 2 animes of all time. That's a great choice. At first I thought you were going to go Aizen, but Ukiura, oh my goodness, what a great, incredible choice.
Aizen is already in the Black Air Force table. There needs to be no explanation for him.
Yes, so in October, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc is coming. Bleach is making its long-awaited return. That's going to be so epic. So yeah, just for real, we had a really great time. We're not going to give recommendations. Everything we just touched on, we gave kind of where you can find it at. If you just search it online, you can find it as well. So with that, we're going to go straight into our plugs.
And yes, so first thing I want to plug is that, again, we have our Thor mega episode where we are going to we're going to read out a lot of emails, questions, answers through the mailbag that we are going to be receiving from you guys, the fans. So please submit these under these platforms, and we hope to see you soon. So firstly, we have our Instagram and our Twitter under Blurred City 22. And we have our Discord, which is Blurred City, and the link to that is in our Instagram page. So if you go to our Instagram page, you'll find the link to the Discord, and you can be set right on in with the rest of the gang. And you'll be able to interact with us, submit all the questions and your Geek Out Freak Out segments right on there. Then we also have our Blurred City Pod YouTube page, as well as the Patreon page, where you can look at different episodes that we release exclusively on there, such as our review of the Trapped in a Dating Simulator anime. So if you want to see our thoughts on there, please subscribe and give us a good shout out. So please do that. And then finally, we have our email, which is blurredcity22@gmail.com, where you can also submit your questions as well as your Geek Out Freak Out segments in there as well. So we hope to see you soon on these platforms.
Yep. So we're excited with our Thor mega episode, really hyping that up. Probably going to be 2+ hours most likely. Hope you stick around. It's going to be really fun. We're going to dive into a lot with Marvel, Thor, even love. So that's going to be a really fun episode. So for my individual author pages, my Instagram is Mitri_Dash. So METRI_DASH. Twitter @theMad-16. THEMADASH16. And if you want to check out my book, Phantom Pains, The Most Irregular Tale, is available on Amazon. So, as usual, we're going to leave you with some words of encouragement.
And yes, so my words for encouragement for you today is that, like anime, there's a multitude of different subgroups and subtypes, and that's the same with people. There's a multitude of just people of different types and different maybe thought patterns or attitudes. And you may find that some people may not be to your liking. So feel free to just go out and find and meet people who are also like-minded like you. So please just go out and do that and not be stuck with people you may not necessarily like.
Yep. And for me, just sticking in the realm of anime, don't be afraid to branch out. I know we all have things that we stick to, that we love, but there's a world of so much in terms of just music, entertainment, different cultures. Really don't be afraid to branch out and don't deny yourself such enjoyment. So with that, I'm gonna just say, as usual, it's not goodbye forever. It's just goodbye for now. And that's the Blurred City Pod.
See ya later.